Naona for your prompt response to this press briefing, which wants to address one of the pertinent issues currently we are facing as a country. Now, we are here with part of the leadership of Mombasa, who comprise of various directors and chairperson of Mombasa. But more instructively also, we are joined by one of the directors of the Kenya Pipeline Company, Mr. Mutungwa Wambua, who has acted swiftly in response, together with her chairperson, Faith Boynet, and others, to avert a potential economic crisis or sabotage. The subject of my presser today, which will be distributed to all of you, is safeguarding integrity, rejecting callous political exploitation of the petroleum scandal. On behalf of the United Democratic Alliance, UDA, I wish to address a critical national security concern that has over the weekend been regrettably politicized callously and irresponsibly. War, particularly in the Middle East, our beloved country, like many other states across the world, is confronting unprecedented economic and strategic vulnerabilities. Among these emerging risks is the stability, reliability, and stability, economic continuity, and public welfare. Instead of approaching this matter with the sobriety per situation, scavenging for political mileage and advancing narrow, myopic, and parochial interests at the expense of the national good. It is for this reason that the UDA finds it necessary to address the impeached former Deputy President, GACHAGUA, or otherwise known as Wamunyoro, and his surface-level economic expert, enthusiasts, to desist from acting at the behest of their Mombasa-based benefactor. On this critical national matter, this commentary has not only been given discordant. Their commentary has not only been discordant. On this critical national matter, their commentary has not only been discordant, but also conspicuously superficial. A small clique of unscrupulous civil servants, sworn to safeguard national interests, conspired to enrich themselves at the expense of millions of Kenyans. They orchestrated a nefarious scheme that will have occasioned a direct loss of more than 3 billion Kenya shillings to the public by procuring substandard petroleum products under the false pretext of an impending fuel shortage. Driven by unrestrained greed, they went further to undermine and curtail critical product quality testing protocols, recklessly exposing consumers, transport systems, and key economic production sectors to potentially catastrophic risks. Wamunyoro and Indinyoro, rather than conduct engineered artificial supply constraints by restricting the discharge of petroleum products to oil marketing companies, all the while the unsuspecting public bore the brunt and misdirected their frustration towards innocent market players. The so-called Wamunyoro petroleum.
Investors feel confident about the state of the macro environment at the moment.
The optimism that has materialized in 2025 has been rather surprising. I mean, if you take the way international markets have opened
for the shilling, that didn't happen. The macro reform that government has been undertaking
distort market dynamics and manipulate supply chains for personal gain, a cynical attempt to profit from manufactured uncertainty. The UDA commends the government and its security agencies for swiftly nipping this criminal enterprise and attempted economic sabotage in the bud. Wamunyoro ought to be reminded that indeed schooled. Whereas politics can be contested across many fronts, Wamunyoro ought to be reminded and indeed schooled that matters touching on national economic security demand restraint, maturity and statesmanship from leaders across all political persuasions. Regrettably, Wamunyoro has consistently fallen short of this standard. Stability reveals a leader seemingly willing to assume the role of a political economic hitman, prioritizing factionalism and sectarianism expediency over national interest, a conduct that is not only unbecoming of a leader of his stature, and his pseudo-informants are unaware of how international oil majors, such as the Saudi Aramco, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Corporation, and ENOC, nominate local agents under established global protocols. Equally, it is inconceivable that he will be so naive, credulous, and politically distressed as to embrace the misguided and armchair narrative peddled by his Mombasa-based paymaster and other allied economic saboteurs that they intended to import cheaper fuel outside the G2G, that is the government. On the contrary, the scheme involved importing multiple highly priced cargoes between Kenya shillings 50 and Kenya shillings 80 above the existing D2G shipments, a move that will have triggered runaway inflation, crippled the economy, and inflicted untold miseries and suffering on millions of Kenyans. It's therefore worth noting that while Wamunyoro is well within his democratic right to engage in political contestation, he must exercise prudence and avoid inflammatory, ill-informed, and infantile pronouncements meant to inflame emotions and score cheap tribal and assurances to Kenyans that they will not be penalized at the pump for this ill-conceived fuel importation misadventure. In the forthcoming fuel price review, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority will sustain the government-to-government G2G pricing framework, which has demonstrably remained stable and reasonable and continues to offer the most reliable safeguard. For adequate safeguards have been instituted to mitigate risk posed by the substandard cargo. The government will disclose the mandatory quality test conducted at discharge and release the corresponding results to the public. There will be no waiver of such testing protocols, as any such action would amount to gross negligence and unacceptable dereliction of duty. 3, we confirm that surcharge and recovery proceedings against the importers have commenced to ensure Kenyan taxpayers are shielded from any financial exposure. We further propose punitive sanctions amounting to 5 times the projected loss, that is 3 billion times 5, amounting to 15 billion. These recovered funds should be ring-fenced and channeled towards strengthening level 6 referral hospitals, thereby converting a potential crisis or loss into a long-term public health investment. So for Munyoro, in light of his remarks, which appear to suggest unusual familiarity with the alleged scheme, if evidence established complicity, he should be treated as an accomplice and subjected to the full force of the law. Thank you. That's Hassan Omar, Secretary General, the UDA. Just in a context, to explain, trained by one Wamunyoro on any matter that touches sometimes on the security and grave national interest has become a matter of grave concern to a lot of reasonable Kenyans. I think we have been treated to the theater of misinformation, disinformation, ethnic incitement, emotions, whipping of emotions by this gentleman, even when the facts are steady and the facts suggest the contrary. And today we have decided as a party and in future that we will respond to him on every disengagement and misinformation that he has, particularly when he is being paid or being where paymasters are evidently using his otherwise rogue platform to.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Elliot.
And we're the co-managing directors of Booty, a sustainable.
Today I was addressing some of these typical national issues. One thing that happened for a fact, for those of you who have studied the G2G arrangements very, very, very carefully, to avert and to ensure our security of supply and G2G arrangement at the advent of this administration about 2 years ago, for public officers in their own volition to act outside established frameworks of engagement, where if our G2G partners today had pulled out, would occasion a massive economic crisis, is the height of not only greed or gluttony, but the height of lack of patriotism. I think since the US illegally started bombing Iran, there has been no indication from our G2G partners whatsoever that they will not meet the obligations. In fact, that crisis, they started by creating an artificial shortage You do recall there was almost a panic buying at some point across Nairobi and parts of other than the usual quarter tank. There will be a demand, a false demand, or surge in demand, which then will just stabilize as time progresses. And then purport to use that crisis to import outside the G2G framework, which is an arrangement that has assured us stable supply of fuel, stabilized the Kenya shilling, stabilized the economy, stabilized inflation. Wajua leo, if fuel prices were to go up, it affects all other sectors of the economy. The fuel crisis will create a volatility in the economy that is unprecedented. And yet Kenya has been able to mitigate this volatility quite effectively. So I think it was an utmost lack of patriotism for any public officers to conspire with private sector players to precipitate a crisis that will have probably created such enormous challenges for any government. Other governments, other countries are already rationing usage of fuel. They're already rationing electricity and power supply. They're already rationing LPG. Yet in Kenya, because of our commitments that we've had with our partners, they've assured us of the cargo for that conspiracy. That is not even the end of the story. You know what happens when, as our investigative agencies were investigating this matter and taking necessary action, is the continued politicization of all matters that are within his knowledge or out of his knowledge. You do realize that all of you who have been watching Wamunyoro, even as deputy president, has always demonstrated a very wanting intellectual faculties to understand even very basic concepts. But for this one, he is fairly eloquent because he has been prepped to create diversion, a beneficiary of those who are perpetrating these massive economic crimes. I do believe the DCI will act swiftly and that suspects will be presented with the necessary charges, and that will be a deterrence. And us as a party, we know that there's a lot of remnants of the Uhuru regime who are still working for our government, are sabotaging this country and this government in all aspects, in all sectors of the economy, in all public institutions and state corporations. I want to tell you that we serve as a warning. Now, we will not allow you to continue to sabotage this. Act with unbending zeal, with necessary commitment and ruthlessness to handle these kinds of malpractices. It's just unfathomable that any public servant will try to, and any private individual out of a sheer recklessness to profiteer, will subject this country to a potential economic crisis of this magnitude. And it serves as a deterrence for those in future who want to subvert this country's otherwise fair economic trajectory or good economic trajectory. So sisi tuko tayari kwa maswali mawili ama matatu. Yes, Kai.
We understand those who are implicated, but deeply on the
First and foremost, I want to first commend the act of patriotism by...
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to get.
There's been some cartels in the petroleum sector and energy sector who have been trying to profiteer to dominate the energy market so as to ensure that there's a continued sense of dominance or monopoly. And that affects the prices of energy or LPG quite exponentially. And therefore, I think the government is intervening. We have licensed various handlers, including Taifa Gas and Lake Gas, and we hope that we will have prices of energy or LPG quite substantially. So I am not aware that this touches in any way the PS energy. I think it just wants people, they have a way of crying for blood of others. Alex is an honorable gentleman, and this in no way touches the mandate of his ministry. Oil importation and regulation doesn't touch UDA in this government, who know where public interest begins and where gluttony must end. And I think by him raising the red flag, averted a potential crisis for this country, particularly with those we have contracted as our G2G partners, to ensure that there was no further harm or damage occasioned to the people of Kenya. But I, again, When Munyoro, for instance, drops in names, he's very casual with tribes. When he mentions a very innocent businessman like Jack Chebet is a businessman of great repute, and we know he has not disinherited his brother's widow. Yeah, Jack Chebet does legitimate business in the region. Starbucks is a big oil marketing company. It has presence in the whole of this region, including Uganda. But for him to constantly drop Jack Chebet's name is an attempt, to draw the lines of ethnicity. Tuju anashindwa kulipa deni, then unaleta Wamunyoro because he's the easiest prey of propaganda and rumors. Lipa deni bwana, kai. Halafu unasema unakwenda kwa polisi, unadanganya, una fake abduction. Alafu wazee wawili bwana, mmoja anasema oh I'm dying, alafu yule watermelon anamwambia oh you will not die. Imefika ujinga aina gani hii wazee? Where Jaramogi Oginga Odinga is, Masinde Muliro, where Stanley Njindo Matiba is, where Charles Rubia are, and they look at an opposition led by Wamunyoro, Watermelon, Yule Mwamwalwa. They shudder, and they are probably praying for this government. The alternative for this country is catastrophic. That's why we remain stable, and we. Yes, please.
Maybe from the position of the party,
the
UDA party, I've seen in many nations, the democracy prevails. You see like Wadai being the CEO of the mini sector, the energy department.
Yeah.
I've seen in countries where the democracy is,
So you're saying that democratically, the democracy Wandai should have resigned. That's what you're trying to say.
Not yet.
Yeah. What are you saying?
I'm asking, should Wadai have seen this coming, being the CEO of the energy sector? And also, maybe, can you bet on what Wamunyoro was saying? Because Wamunyoro has been bragging himself like, I've been seeing this coming in other sector like SHA. So
The economy will collapse. It has not collapsed. He said SHA was fake. Right now he's prophesizing doom. He talked about many other ills of government. To the contrary, they have prevailed. And he himself, in his own account, has listed the achievements of this government. Just that he adds a rider of hatred and malice. He has made President William Ruto as his punching bag because of he's still trying to heal. Yeah, he's still trying to heal. He never thought that this country in 2027. One of the things that why some of these people are getting a little tired with Wamunyoro, these were aggressors for a very long time. Yeye na kina Uhuru, wajua alikuwa pia ya Uhuru. Na kabla hapo CV yake ilikuwa na wizi ya mahindi, ya relief food. That's the only CV he has. Then his brother died, and then he became a member of parliament. So that's a very short CV. But these are Uhuru today says he warned us as a country. Uhuru has been the biggest perpetrator of his position that this government has taken the country out of, the inflation, the debt situation. So when these are aggressors, these are people, when you position the perpetrators as the victims, Wamunyoro is not a victim, he's a perpetrator. And all these things are wishful. So people have realized when you are angry, people always feed you with angry dogma. At where he is, across the country. Did you see Wamunyoro visiting these areas of the country? He just makes a few trips to Kisii because there's Matiang'i there. He goes to Ukambani, then he calls Mohamed Ali and they go somewhere in Mount Kenya. Mohamed Ali and Solsas who work together in hatred and in ethnicity. Watu wadua wanaogopa kusema hiyo. The only people who hang out with Wamunyoro are tribalists. They only run candidates. When you'll see now DCP will go to run a candidate in Olkalau because he thinks they are Kikuyus to feed on. Wamunyoro will run a candidate. What is it called? It's called what? Watermelon. Only in Ukambani because he has no other clout. But you see the way UDA runs a candidate anywhere. These factional political parties, even if you look at the modus operandi of what some of the people who are looking at the votes, their votes architecture, some of the candidates here are constantly posting hatred. Oh, sijui sisi wabara tutapigiwa kura. Who has ever said anybody is restricted? People, they all read from the same script of hatred and malice. And I will not unabated monopoly in addressing these types of issues, because for a long time they have thought because nobody is responding to them, they can get away with it. And then, before Wamunyoro is allowed to bring this country down, that's why I'm telling the DCI, make good some of your statements. Arrest this gentleman. Sisi tuko tayari. Arrest him. Kwani atatufanya nini? Yes, iko watu yake kidogo fanatic, watapiga kelele mahali hapa na pale. So what? So it is important for us now to demonstrate our sense of courage as a nation. So wewe ndugu yangu Amin, wale watu wako katika upelelezi, the IG Kanja, it's time to act on this gentleman before it's too late, because he has consistently tried to evoke emotions in this country to precipitate hatred and violence. Yes. Wewe uko huko ama huko? Oh, okay. Nilifikiria hata alikuwa anakuangalia ni aspirant ya wapi. LGB. Yeah, okay.
Now, what is the plans of the government, maybe to push on Kenyans and
yeah, but you see, the G2G has continued to give us very steady disruption, or within a fair price range, despite the crisis in the Middle East, or the war, and then us increasing palm prices. But what this cargo had intended to do was to disrupt that. It was intended to renege on the commitments we have under the G2G, occasion a pullout, and occasion a profiteering. And this cargo that was brought in was far more to a 50 shillings price hike, to a 50 shillings price hike, or even 60 per litre. Do you know what would that have meant? Our prices of fuel have gone up by an average of about 25 to 30%. And that means, therefore, inflation across board. Your Uber, matatus, energy costs, the cost of supply, the cost of production, everything will have utter bad faith to sabotage this country economically and to occasion massive harm. For players who have not declared upon us at the G2G that we have any challenges in delivering Kenya. This is just unpatriotic. Rather than Wamunyoro sometimes using his mind, which I think he doesn't exercise prudently, to look at these issues, he constantly is attacking people, attacking Gulf Energy. He knows how the Gulf Energy came into the G2G arrangement. He also tried to have his own company, which was denied because I think at that point he was still in government. He knows that Jack Chebet is not part of this whole ecosystem, but he continues to malice very genuine.
Dark marks keep coming back. New Garnier Vitamin C Day and Night Serums. Daily with the #1
to malice the president on a day-to-day basis. They go for every little thing. Mtu hajalipa deni, serikali. Standard hajalipa deni, serikali. Juzi pia mlisema ile tulisuspend ile onyo yenu kwa ajili serikali inajaribu kwa silence. So true. Lipa deni, lipa wafanyikazi. Hata wafanyikazi wanajua hawalipwi. Why 1 to 7?
I'm giving in a scale of 1 to 7. 7 being the highest. But we talked about Wamunyoro and Wamunyoro. If these are culprits that are dangerous to the society,
it holds water anywhere. But you see, for a long time, even you have probably consumed this fake news, particularly in terms of how we present it. It has no legal grounding. But you see, even madmen are given an opportunity to say whatever they feel in a democracy. But now when those touch on facts and national security of the country, we respond. And that's why I've told the DCI, where there is factual or reasons or grounds to arrest and charge these men. You know, today, so suddenly, this gentleman, Ndindi, has become an expert on everything. He won't, he tells us how the fuel prices will not go down, will not go up. Everywhere in the world, the fuel prices are going up. The reason the fuel prices in Kenya, some of you have confidence because of some ethnic machinations of their unparalleled intelligence, because they are consistently attacking this government, and therefore for you, some of you, that is music to your ears. So you tend to embrace the falsities. But I think I'm just saying. But now, I hope when we start taking action, there are those who will not think that it is just a circus. We will challenge. We have to challenge the DCI to act appropriately where necessary. This is the director at KPC.
Yes.
He wants to add something. Kenya Pipeline Company.
Yes, thank you very much, SG. I think SG has wrapped up everything. The UDA Secretary General Hassan Omar. But I want to answer the question this gentleman asked. When this government came in place, Kenya Pipeline bought KPRL, which is refinery, it's not a refinery, 100%. So it's under KPC. And those tanks which were here, almost 500,000 metric tons, they were converted from crude oil to be able to store fine product, which is petroleum and diesel. And this can last Kenya for that. You cannot find it in Kenya because we have enough storage. That is the big tank which used to store crude oil. The ships can offload there and go. And even worst case scenario, we can bring over 10 ships in the ocean and our tanks are full. And we're not so, SG has said it, we have enough storage to store product, and there is no panic in the market. And those individuals who went outside the system that is there, they tried to circumvent it. They did it on their own. There was no instruction from the board didn't know this, and the other staff didn't know. So let them carry their own cross. If your hands are dirty, the government will go for you. That is what I want to share. Thank you, SG. My name is Mutungwa Wambua, Director Kenya Pipeline. Yes.
Unajua sisi tumepatapata kutoka William Ruto. Hizi ndio zile hasira za kina Wamunyoro. Mimi ni SG, kuna mawaziri hapa Mombasa, kuna ma-PS hapa Coast, tuko hapa. Hii nchi itabadilika, my brothers and sisters. I'm very grateful also to the media in Mombasa. You have stuck to the subject matter ya leo. Kesho ndio nitaongea siasa. I'm very grateful. Kesho we will have a massive sensitization forum hapo Burhani grounds. So as usual, the members of the media are always invited to our forums, and I'm mkwe na Pasaka njema, manake sasa hii inamalizika. Nimewatoa leo alikuwa labda mwingine mko mumelala ukanga kukaa kama alikuwa kwenda kanisani kuomba. Sasa naweza kaenda ukarudi ukalala afternoon. Hii Pasaka ishe vema kwa kila mtu, sio? Na kesho tuanze tena kazi na tuanze kujenga ile taifa la Kenya.